not.
Yes, and interesting bans, something that's not been as common in this tournament so far. We've seen a lot of Nilfgaard bans, we've seen a lot of Scoia'tael bans, but this one, listoncavanaugh coming out and straight up saying, no sir, I don't want to see any purple.
Yep, that is a Skellige ban. listoncavanaugh banning out ShoePlays' Skellige deck. We'll absolutely have to see how that plays out, but it's definitely a unique choice.
Right, and Shue, on the other hand, banning Liston's Nilfgaard Alchemy as well. So just as we've seen a lot of wacky interactions between Alchemy and Alchemy, Shue wants no part of that. And just as Joe has a horse in the race, I too have a horse in the race on this one. I am going to be pulling hard for Liston, another one of my Canadian brethren. So, so we're going to go straight to it, my man. Any last words of wisdom to your buddy there, Shue?
No, I think he'll be just fine.
He's be okay. So we're going to go straight to the games. Enjoy it.
Let's go. It looks like we have listoncavanaugh, another console player, I think, being able to take part in this open LAN, which is awesome, by the way. Seeing some console players get to flex a little bit here in the local North American tournament. And Shue, who is no stranger to Gwent, he's been playing for a long time. I mean, I'm sure Liston has also been playing for a long time, but we know Shue, and it's good to see the Canadians still in the running here as we have, I believe, Henselt taking on Liston, and we've got a little bit of Death Wish. Versus, let's take a look at Henselt. It's going to be another one of these Bloody Baron Selkirk jams.
Yeah, it's looking like it's a very popular choice today, and it's been quite powerful on stream. The very interesting Death Wish choice here. What do you think about the Arrakis Queen being chosen as the leader, where it's much more standard to see the Dagon?
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because in this situation here with Liston, we are able to see that he is still going with Foglets. So he has Woodland Spirit and he has Vadermaker, also known as Aeromancer. And so he is still running the Foglets, he is still running that thinning engine, and he's still kind of using Woodland Spirit as his gateway there. And the Arrakis Queen, and there's no Neckers involved here. There's no sort of there's really not a lot of difference here between other kind of Dagon-based Deathwish lists. Arrakis Queen can just secure maybe more procs on Dow. This is not a Nova list, so we're seeing 3 Dow, 3 Griffin, 3 Arcus Spores. So there is like some opportunities for Arrakis Queen just to be a huge play, like maybe consume 2 Dows in a turn, get double procs of the 8. Lesser Dow. You know, actually, I haven't really seen a lot of this type of list.
I haven't seen it at all either, but thinking about it, it actually makes a lot of sense. This gives the Death Wish deck another way to just close out a round. It can be used as a round 3 finisher in a medium spot, but look at most round 1 scenarios. If it goes reasonably long, even triggering 2 and then living the dream and triggering 3 Death Wishes off of the Arrakis Queen can be such a gigantic point swing that your opponent just won't able to overcome it. I wonder if that's part of the plan here.
What if, Joe, that part of the plan was actually to attract bans? Or throw off mulligans or throw off strategies like, oh, he's running Consume. Good thing I have tech for Consume. Surprise, it's not Consume.
Now I'm going to have to ask him afterwards because that is a super interesting mind game to consider playing. As we see the Karathi Heatwave coming down, we saw this card do a ton of work in the last match. We're not going to see the Axeman here. This is mostly going to be a tool to secure a ton of long-term value and try and force his opponent out of the round here.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of Karathi Heatwave today. I mean, Gold Weather, like, it's interesting. Usually, at least in some previous tournaments, we've seen double gold weather packages like Ragnarok and Heatwave, then known as Drought. But it seems like a single gold weather is kind of being the new hotness here, especially for this Bloody Baron deck that's just trying to kill as many units as possible. So you want to go for that low weather effect, Frost and Drought in this situation. So you're more likely to kill things. I think back in the way back when Bloody Baron was Radovid, you play Rain. Rain was doing that low damage, so it's not too out of the ordinary. But just seeing that single gold weather, it's almost refreshing.
Yeah, it is certainly refreshing, and look, it's going to force the pass out of Liston here. Part of this, there's sort of a hidden thing going on here. The fact that the Larrys, the Arcaspore, 2 on the board right now, they bounce around between rows, so you can't really employ the standard anti-gold weather strategy of jamming all of your units into one row and hoping that they don't have a way to punish, because the Larrys will bounce back and forth.
Yeah, they jump into the weather, which means that they'll jump out, jump in, and then get hit with the weather. So if let's say in this situation, if both of the Arcaspore jump into the siege row, only the Shadow or the Maelorn would get hit. Nothing on the melee row will get hit, as both of those will jump. So there is an option here where less damage is done, less attrition goes down here. But Shue should easily be able to make up this difference and take the round. We will be going down a card though.
Yeah, so he's going to be going down a card, but he's sort of also going to be in a favorable spot. A lot of times, the Henselt player really likes these long rounds. We see that he's got the Owzer's Double Crossed in his hand, which is no doubt going to be able to pull a Thaler out of his deck, which will either secure him card advantage or try to activate his Dun banners to pull them out of the deck, increase the power of his draws, as well as just putting 12 points on the board, effectively turning it into a 3-point spy.
Gonna have to get rid of that Foglet list, and that's not good. And this is the danger of having a short round with cards that you just absolutely do not ever want to draw or play from hand. Not a big deal. Didn't get trapped. Didn't get stuck with it here. And he is not running anything like anything to source the Mandrake like Vesemir Mentor, so that's fine that that's in his hand here. And he does still have Woodland Spirit. But he is now in the round. He's in the round that he has to win. So the length of this round is going to be completely up to Shue. Shue is doing his best to build up his Baron. He does have a lot of opportunities here. The Winch can create some great scenarios for Henselt. The Siege Masters are going to do tons of work, and he's going to start off with Taller to get a little bit of that card advantage back.
Yeah, the Baron is particularly effective against the Deathwish deck for a couple of reasons. First and foremost being the Deathwish deck is going to kill some of its own units by itself without Shue actually having to do anything. And the Arrakis Queen, it looks like, is going to play into this as well. Then when the Dows, they trigger their Death Wish, they make multiple small units, which the Henselt decks are typically very, very good at removing. So I expect to see a very large Bloody Baron coming out this game.
What's interesting is, too, because we know these players have already had a pretty decent record. Both players are 3-1. I believe Shue and Liston both were 3-0 before in round 3. So we know that this list has been working for him, or it's been getting banned, one or the other. And we see Muzzle once again, Muzzle grabbing a Reinforced Trebuchet, and this might actually be exactly the sequence that we're about to see. An absolutely fantastic Muzzle target. An engine that starts at 8 is one of the best things you can grab. We'll see if Liston is tempted by this.
Yeah, it's definitely a very good target. Now that we've moved into round 2 and Ronvid is already reset at 1 strength, he's no longer a super attractive muzzle target, particularly in a round that Liston has to win here, as he's going to need, he can't afford to make low tempo plays, basically. So I'm interested to see whether he's going to go for that, or developing the Woodland Spirit is another interesting option here, because that's effectively going to do 2 damage a turn, whereas, well, I guess pulling over the 8 sort of 2 also, 1 less you're taking and 1 more you're dealing, right?
Well, it's interesting. Now he did go ahead and grab it, and I was getting worried because if he didn't grab it, ShoePlays could have just played Henselt for the triple treb, constant round of attrition. Even like he could have gone so far as maybe playing Death Mold for some weather and just really making it a pain for Liston to get an edge on this round. As it stands right now, Liston is now in a great position, shifted the score by 16 points, plus every round that's going to be ticking. Shue is now going to have a little bit of a harder time really getting an advantage here. However, the Winches could still secure him another Reinforced Trebuchet if he wanted to still approach it like that.
Yeah, I think that's the best target he can really hope for here. As you're saying, you can get into a lot of positions with these Reinforced Trebuchets. If you get to Henselt it out, you can make a few plays, and then your damage over time is so overwhelming that oftentimes you could pass and force multiple cards out of your opponent, which is an interesting way to try and secure card advantage here. I'm going to be curious to see how ShoePlays plans to try and fight to get his card back. I think that is his primary goal in this round.
You know, I think he might be searching through the Winches to see what he's able to do. Shue is running Reinforced Trebuchet as well as Battering Ram, so either of those would be great because I don't believe, well, we haven't seen a Battering Ram played. But we haven't seen, but the Winches can source that extra one, and he still have 2 in his deck. If I'm not mistaken, he only played the 1 Battering Ram.
Yeah, I believe that is the case.
It was a very short round 1, so that was just it. He played it to take the round. So that means that Henselt would be able to create an incredibly strong tempo play and maybe do a really favorable pass. Selkirk could also generate a lot of tempo as well, but outside of that, it's tricky too because he doesn't want to expend too much of his machine potential. He does have 3 Siege Masters in his hand, and they're going to have to do work only if there's a deploy effect on the board to reignite, you might say.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. These Winches have a very large burden to carry here. He's really hoping to hit either Battering Ram or the Trebuchet, just one of the Henselt targets, but he's going to need his machines to stick, and this Cyclops might have something to say about that we see in the hand of Liston here, because if one of these machines doesn't stick, Shue's hand doesn't really do all that much, does it?
It doesn't really do that much for sure, especially, yeah, I mean, even picking the Reinforced Trebuchet means that his Seed Masters still are looking for something to do here. So that next Winch is going to have to produce a job, basically, for those Siege Masters. As Liston does have the opportunity of really going down in value to destroy that Reinforced Trebuchet, but now I think ShoePlays has the choice here. He's going to go for the Henselt Trebuchet attrition, Potentially. He picked it up and now he's putting
thinking
it back down
about
again.
it. I'd be very, very excited if I was him to jam it here. My thought process is if I'm in ShoePlays shoes, I might be thinking, well, my opponent would remove this if he could. So maybe he was thinking he was safe for a second.
Yeah.
But I think overall he's going to take the conservative line here. Just make sure to get these trebuchets down as they are so key to the rest of this hand. This also frees up the other winch to not have to try and look for that and look for one of the machines that interact a little bit more favorably with the triple Siege Master in his hand.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you would take maybe the reinforced ballista because you have a 14 that you want to wear down a little bit, and then you just constantly just pump rounds into the taller. There's really a lot of options here. I mean, that's probably maybe the best option just because of the board state. Not really favorable to standard trebuchet, not super favorable for ballista. Not the worst ballista, but you probably want to just go for the reinforced ballista here. As Liston is now going to have to use his tools. Griffin into Dow is fantastic. It is a 17-point play every time, but now Shue has got so much in his favor here with the triple reinforced trebuchet he's ticking every turn.
Yeah, the Griffin was really powerful there. That's one of the main draws to actually playing this archetype. The fact that after you take the initial tempo hit of getting one of these Dows down, you get to start slamming 17-point bronzes in the form of Griffin and 19 in the form of Cyclops. These cards are very, very powerful. That being said, Shue's got the damage over time taking here. He's ahead in that race 3-2 currently, so the longer this round goes, it's going to slightly favor Shue each and every turn.
So the board got a little bit more favorable here because he started, units were created for the trebuchet to smash into. He did get the double crewman bookends there, so he was able to do an extra 9 damage, a little 16-point play of his own with the winch. And yeah, every turn is just looking better and better for Shue. It may get to a point, I mean, at some point he's going to be passing here, potentially. But he'll be able to keep reactivating that trebuchet, and it looks like, if he's expecting there to be more procs of that Dow, and he should be expecting that, it means there's going to be lots of extra opportunities to take out, to put more damage on the board with the trebuchet, the standard trebuchet. In the background there.
I think Liston realizes this, and look at this play. I am a huge fan of this play. I think sometimes people get too locked into particular play patterns and thinking that this card has to be used as a finisher, and Liston recognizing the situation, using that situational awareness to realize I need points, I need damage over time, and I need them now. He's okay blowing the 1-strength Crone here just to get 2 of Larry the Archospore back on the board. This is going to be, I mean, obviously it's 15 points right off the bat, 17 after the first trigger, and now he's actually ahead in the damage over time race.
Yeah, it's really good. He's just defending his territory at this point. He's like, okay, this is the game we're going to be playing. It is his only gold card available as well. He still has his leader available, which can do some pretty hefty things. I mean, each of those Archospore represent an extra 4 damage plus the Dow. He does also have a second Dow plus the Cyclops on top of that. He's going to be reactivating the trebuchet, and he's going to probably do as much damage as he can here. He will have to connect with a 1, so it's not full value, but these Siege Masters are going to be doing tons of damage because of the double crewman around it. So unless that's dealt with, he may actually, it looks like Liston might be thinking about, he's already got the Cyclops highlighted. He might have to put some control here.
Yeah, I mean, the Siege Masters are just going to do so much work here, and I do think the Cyclops is the right play. He has correctly identified it. There's a reason that both of these players are doing so well in this tournament.
But he went for the reinforced trebuchet here instead, keeping that trebuchet on the board, which means that ShoePlays now has another chance here to get an extra 15 damage, I believe. Sorry, 13 damage at least, because I think he has to connect if he on the siege row. He would only be getting 7 points on that. So there is that much. Or he can, play. I mean, he can play Selkirk if he wants to surge ahead a little bit harder.
I think Selkirk is a card he's going to want to try and save for round 3, if at all possible. I am a little curious about that because it doesn't look like the round has the capability to go that much longer. So was removing 1 of the damage over time procs really worth it over removing something if Shue potentially has up to 2 more Siege Masters, which you do see are in his hand? We also have, it's interesting here because when you're playing against Hensel, it's pretty safe to assume your opponent's got a Scorch. So that might be why Liston is a little hesitant to pull the trigger on something like Arrakis Queen, whereas it doesn't look like the Arrakis Queen will be particularly great in a very short round 3. So I do expect to see it at some point, and I think he'll be relieved when it doesn't immediately get scorched.
Pretty nice looking lead there. Selkirk taking out the taller with ease, as Selkirk will duel any unit, and he has the armor to withstand it. So, I mean, and he's got a little bit of buff in the last patch. So, Selkirk definitely being tested out here to much success as the Baron now hits the second floor here. He's already at 20. Once again, approaching legal drinking age here in Philadelphia. So we're going to see how how well this is going here. Once again, Shue in a long round has been able to execute a lot of units. In every game that I've seen this list go, Baron has had really not a lot of issue growing to this extent here. Now, can Liston make up the difference here? His plays are a little on the slow side. Playing the Dow, Ozreal's not that slow, especially considering now there's a 13-point spy in the graveyard, so that's an 18-point play from Ozreal. He also has the Ghoul option from the Monster Nest. Looks like he's going to go for the upfront damage of eating up the Archospore and just going to take that extra little tick there from Brewis.
I think he's just hoping ShoePlay bows out of this round soon. This seems sort of like a last bit of desperation here, as Liston would have loved to have been able to develop that Dow first before the Arrakis Queen comes down. But of course, that wasn't going to overcome ShoePlay's point total, so he wasn't going to be able to defend his card, which is sort of what this entire round's focal point has been.
Yeah, and this is a great bleed play here. The Master on an already wounded Trebuchet, bringing the health back up, and with a perfect all nine points allocated perfectly on that Trebuchet, recreating that Crewman pocket, hitting both of the Dow, Lesser Dow, and the Cyclops. listoncavanaugh is getting pushed to his limit here, but Shue is almost out of cards, but I think that he may be, I mean, it's possible that he won't be able to draw another machine. He maybe still be committed to playing one more card here if this isn't too much to overcome when Ozreal gets played.
Yeah, I think it's really important how high tempo Liston goes here. I think this is one of the key decisions of the match because Shue wants to get that other Siege Master down. The question is, does he feel that it's the correct play? What sort of point gap is he going to be able to create because he's still trying to get that card? It looks like Liston is going for the Ozreal here, and once again, I really, really like this play.
The camera zooms in on Shue's face here just to show that steadfast determination with those aviators.
The epic glasses decision.
Yeah. That's some good stuff right there. Ozreal coming down at 13. It's possible I was so focused on the camera work that I missed it. Did he miss an opportunity to make that a little bit bigger?
I do believe that there was the Thaler in the yard. I'm not sure if he missed the opportunity, though. He certainly thought about it for quite some time. I don't believe that wouldn't have lined up with the Arrakis Queen for Scorch, though, right?
There must have been a reason why he didn't go for it. He could have made that a little bit bigger, a little bit more assertive
like
here.
A conscious decision to me. I'm sure there's some sort of reasoning behind it. I'm not seeing it myself right now.
Well, she's going to take the opportunity just to get another wave of damage here from this Trebuchet, which is going to force one more card out of Liston's hand. And ShoePlays is only holding one card left, but it is a big one. He gets 2 more kills here. Large. 26 points on the Bloody Baron.
So do you think that Liston is going to be expecting the Baron? If he can defend his card here, the Mandrake is just so amazingly powerful against it.
Yeah, if he's expecting the Baron, he's going to hold on to that Mandrake, and I think he would be expecting the Baron if he's been kind of paying attention to what's been going on here today.
I agree.
And kind of what this list is. I mean, all the lists have been running Selkirk, and even all the lists that have been running Hensel that we have seen on the featured stage have been a Baron list, as opposed to the more traditional Villain Trettenmirth list, or the Hensel lists of old here. He's playing the Mandrake now, though, Joe.
I think he has to here. It's sort of unfortunate, but he's really, really trying to defend, that extra card. Because if he loses the extra card here, the Mandrake's not going to find a good target anyway next round. And I think he's recognizing this. His play of situational awareness and sort of using tools that aren't hitting their intended target, but to accomplish his purpose, has really impressed me here. I like his play a lot.
You know, I was just thinking about the Taller in the graveyard. I think it's possible that he wants to hold on to Monster Nest Ghoul for that Taller for round 3, because he may need it. Although I was thinking that he would probably take Barbagazi or something to proc the Dow. I mean, it could go either way. The value might necessarily be on the Ghoul.
I think you're absolutely right, and I also think Liston is really hoping he doesn't have to play the Dow. By the way he's played this round, it screams to me that he's trying to mulligan that 6 strength unit away, and yeah, that line of play is spot on, makes 100% sense right now.
Shue is thinking about pushing here with the 26 point. Now that he's seen the Mandrake, I think he's going for it. So aggressive.
Is he gonna drop it? And
aggressive.
He is all
he's going
in.
For the 2-0. All in here. Drops the 26-7 point Baron that is going to continue to tick as well. If
says,
more
here's
things,
my hand. Can you beat it?
Can you beat it? So he's got the Ghoul with Taller. He's got the Dow, which is really only 6 points. I don't think that's going to be enough.
It's going to be really close for sure. We do have the Fog still ticking over here.
Fog is still ticking. Oh, it's just with the pings on the,
yeah,
the
look at this.
trebuchet.
The
Show
highs and the
me
lows,
the numbers.
the highs and the lows.
Not quite enough. The trebuchet's doing work here with the 2-0. What a bully ShoePlays, going up 1-0 here with an incredibly aggressive Baron play. Very, very nice work.
I really like the play by both players.
I thought it was a fantastic match.
That was great right there.
That
That
might have
is
been-
Gwent at its finest.
That really was one of the best matches we've seen. I think that was some last-minute decision-making, really making a read on the hand there. Liston only having that Dow at the end, wasn't able to proc it, and it was just ultimately too slow. Burned him down. That 26-point Baron just saying, all right, let's go. Let's do this.
So what does Shue have next? It looks like he's got a John Calvate alchemy-themed deck.
Yep.
Is going to be the last deck he's going to need to try and get a win with. If you're in Liston's position, are you bringing the Death Wish again, or are you going to try and switch it up?
It's interesting. His other choice here is a Francesca. Francesca is kind of the elfin deck that we've seen. A lot of, with a lot of elves, sword. It's actually it's a hand buff. It has sword masters in it. Very interesting.
This is spicy. I'm a man who likes my sword masters.
Well, let's see if he goes ahead and switches it up and brings it, or is he going to believe? He's going to believe in the monster
He's
deck.
believing in the
we may not
monsters.
actually get a chance to see that Francesca deck, so we're going to believe in the monsters here. Larry very well represented in this hand here.
Yes. This is the key reason not to play the Nova version. You simply get access to one more Larry.
Oh man, some memes just shine brighter than others, I think.
So what are you looking to get rid of out of this hand? Potentially the Mandrake, although it's interesting here because you do have the 6 strength Crone. Which one is that? Is that Tribute? So you have the Tribute Crone, which can pull the Mandrake, but I think he correctly identifies that he just has to hold on to it because it's so powerful against the Calvate here that he's willing to forego a little bit of value. And I think he's going to go out of his way to hold on to the Monster's Nest longer than normal, even in a spot where it might look good, so that he'll have the ability to mulligan it later should the need arise, and he does draw that Tribute.
Absolutely, and I think that, it's tough. He has the 2 organic cards in his hand already here. But usually when I play this deck, I just get rid of the Foglet, and because I tend to run a Nova list, I have lots of extra stuff like Rot Fiends I don't usually keep on. But in this list, you just sub that stuff out. Really, if you get rid of the Foglet, mostly the hand that you can piece together is very good. With the Wispa's Tribute version, you have more interesting mulligan choices and interesting lines of play, I think. But ultimately, you get your Marilorn, means you get your extra Arcaspore. He has an Arcaspore already available. He's going to be able to develop lots of Deathwish units to ultimately use Brewis on later or earlier, just like we saw him play that in round 2 of the last game, trying to kind of defend that territory here. But the option of just going ahead and playing the Weather here is fine. And I think this matchup is decent for the Deathwish deck because the Slave Driver can see a lot of stuff that doesn't do a lot for, especially because Liston isn't running Barbagazi in his bronze list. There isn't really a way for him to proc Dows with the Slave Driver. He doesn't get a lot of value out of the Griffins. He doesn't get a lot of value out of the Foglets, obviously. So there are a lot of kind of not great Slave Drivers, slower bronze plays here.
Yeah, not having Barbagazi in your bronze suite when you're playing these Deathwish style decks definitely helps you out against Calvate. I think you hit the nail right on the head there. One of the key things that, as a viewer, I would keep an eye on here, ShoePlays is going to be looking for a way to get his Calvate down and play around Mandrake at the same time. This can be done by immediately Mandraking it, by hitting Vesemir into Mandrake, or potentially Slave Driver into Cyclops to throw the Calvate at another unit just to get it off the board to protect it. Otherwise, Kahir, which is his main and strongest finisher in this deck, will essentially be a 1-point gold.
It's really the only thing he can do, and if Calvate is dealt with, I mean, anything else that he would choose to Mandrake could just get eaten up by Ozrel. So there is a key point in vulnerability that ShoePlays does not want Liston to exploit.
Oh, I totally agree. I'm a little interested to see the Dow being developed so early here, particularly with the Larry the Arcaspore and the Malorn that could pull one. I'm interested to see why he's not more prioritizing not only the damage over time, but removing those 1-strength bodies, or even having the potential to do so, has some very real tangible value against Alchemy because they do need multiple units and they need to play in every row.
Yeah, I mean, especially when he already has the fog ticking. It's possible he just wants to set that up while he still can afford to. It's early in the round, and this might be the best time for him to do that. He he isn't at risk of losing too much tempo. It's also possible that he just really wants to play as much tempo as possible to surge ahead. Since he is on the red coin, he's trying to take advantage of that, as you can get an incredible amount of tempo out of a Dow on the board. He does have double Griffin in hand, but getting the Arcosport ticking is, like you said, very important. You can take out some key units. That opportunity is a little bit less now, but also always keeping that engine growing and being more attrition over time. You get that extra value.
Yeah, I mean, that's sort of the name of the game with these Deathwish style decks, is just the value. They are so good at just value, value, value. I'm curious to see. This is interesting. He's got another Griffin he can slam for just a massive point total. Beyond that, his hand doesn't look like it goes super deep. It doesn't look like he wants to Arrakis Queen. He's only got one Deathwish trigger on the board currently. He's holding Weavis in his hand, Brewis in his hand, yeah. I'm sorry, Brewis, which is oftentimes going to be dead round one unless the Alchemy player really goes out of their way to start removing your Deathwish units. I'm curious how long he sees himself in this round. Maybe this is part of his strategy.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see here. I think, I think Liston might have just been thinking, I'm gonna do a. He's thinking about playing this other Griffin here. I think he's just trying to front load as much value as possible. He's obviously playing around Expired Ale here by stacking the row.
100%.
And I think he's just trying to get, trying to push ahead as much as he can to put Shoe possibly in a position of either passing on even cards or going down and not being able to make up the total, which is obviously a very dangerous position to be in. And sacrificing an early development of Arcosport to do that. Was that the best decision? Will it pay off in this situation? He's only ahead by 10 points, which is easily made up by Alchemy.
Yeah, Alchemy's pretty good at slamming points on the board, and you also see that Shu does still have the Calvate. This is a very tempo swingy leader. It can lead to, just basically an explosion of points on the board. It's also got flexibility. It's a very, very powerful tool, and when you're playing Alchemy, you do want to get this down in round 1 or 2, but usually 1 in case you lose round 1. Otherwise, your Kahir is not going to be activated. That's always a priority for the Alchemy players.
What happened here with Shu playing a novice into a dead Ointment, and now he's put himself in a pretty rough position here? Is he trying to bait a pass?
I think he was going for the Mahakam Ale, and sometimes with these Alchemy lists, you only get the choice between 2 different bronzes, and it is potentially possible to hit Ointment. So I think that was the case there.
Well, this also guarantees that Calvate is safe.
Yes, that does make a safe Calvate. That could be a line there. That would be a really, really interesting line to play.
Maybe Shu just weighed his options. It's a high price to pay, though. Yeah, maybe he weighed his options a little bit. He's like, well, if I don't see it, at least I can get away with playing Calvin and not getting caught with it. But I mean, he doesn't have a sure thing spy. Going down 2 cards isn't the end of the world. It's obviously a tough position to be in. But I think Shu might have to take an open pass or hopefully draw into a spy. Find some way of making this a little bit more even here. But he is in control here.
He is. 2 cards isn't something that's really sustainable if you get to round 3 still down 2, but the Alchemy deck is certainly capable of making up a 1-card disadvantage going to the last round due to the overwhelming power of their finishers. I'm really interested to see if that was his thought process, just to make sure he could safely land the Calvate there.
It's interesting now, Liston drew into the Frightener, which is going to help him even more in the advantageous position that he's already in. I think this is definitely Liston's game to lose here, I think, at this point. But, I mean, if Shu ultimately was he must have been weighing his options there. Like, okay, I can at least save Calvin and take it on that. He's showing a nice poker face here. Strong resolve. I don't really see much emotion on his face. Both players are pretty determined here, so we're going to see what Shu decides to do here. Because he doesn't have a spy, looks like he has Vesemir in his hand. He is playing it.
It looks like he's going to play into this round. This is going to be interesting to see what the Frightener when it gets played and what the next draw step for Liston hold here. Because as we were talking about earlier, he does have both of the organic cards that are tutorable by Tribute. And we've seen the Foglet jump into his hand a couple of times that he's had to mulligan away. So, there's definitely the potential for some brick draws here. And that really negates the fact that you have card advantage if one of your plays is a 4-point bronze. It just doesn't mean that much.
ShoePlays has definitely opened up with a pretty strong player at 16. I think that Roach is going to be a tasty snack for Azrael at some point, because I doubt that Liston is going to let ShoePlays get away with playing a Seer to get that back in the deck for a devastating turn here. Looks like he's just going to go ahead and develop the Dow here. Shu may see an opportunity to pass and get a little bit back.
Yeah, he gets the 1 card back here, and now we're seeing Liston aggressively play these Dows over the Larrys. Maybe he's just sort of worried about Viper Witchers, and getting a Dow hit by a Viper Witcher is much less painful for the Death Wish player than getting one of the Arcaspores hit. So I'm starting to think that that's just his general approach to this matchup. I like Shu's play here. I don't know. Do you pass here? What do you think?
I also like ShoePlays, Shu's play here. Absolutely. And I think that, I think that's definitely the option. I mean, it's possible that he wants to develop an even larger lead than he already has, get use out of his Mahakam Ale right now while he can, and while he has control of the round, just make things going, get his deck a little bit thinner, so Calvin has a little bit more good stuff to look at. I mean, he seems like he has no problem putting up the tempo here, but with the Dow on the board, I mean, 2 Griffins have already been played here. Double Dow for the Erica's Queen. He's setting up, and possibly he's going to set up the Arcaspore. So Shu may see an opportunity to pass here, because I think Liston will be able to really turn this around if he's able to have 2 more turns.
Yeah, that seems like Liston's plan to me. Let's see if ShoePlays is able to sort of sniff this one out, because the Arrakis Queen is not going to be incredibly powerful in a short round 3, and that seems to be the direction that ShoePlays is trying to steer this game into. So whether or not Liston is able to get a solid Arrakis Queen off in this round, I think is going to be a very important point.
It's interesting because maybe Shu thinks he has 1 more turn here, because if Liston wants to get full value out of Erica's Queen, he is going to be playing the Arcaspore next, which is a fairly slow play, and it's possible that Shu might be sniffing this out. It's like, okay, so he's got 2 Dows on the board, he's Erica's Queen, he hasn't played any Arcaspore yet. I can get away with playing maybe 1 more card here with a nice big lead, keep things pretty big at this point, and then maybe opt to pass after this.
I think that's very insightful. That seems to me like a very reasonable and well thought out line of play. I likely think that's what we're seeing here.
And he got an Arcaspore as well off the Slave Driver, which isn't bad. At least it's something that can work for you.
Yeah, it's probably his best hit at this point. I mean, it's going to, after 1 proc, it's going to equal the strength of a Griffin. I suppose Cyclops is probably a little bit better on average, depending on how long he's going to go here. And Dow is just not particularly great without holding any other Slave Drivers. I don't know if you really want to commit the ointment here.
Yeah, I think the Arcaspore play kind of telegraphed the whole thing here, and I think Shu would be in a great position to pass after that. Now, I think it's just a little bit too slow here. I think Shu is pretty pleased. This is a pretty hefty lead right now. I think, again, I mean, I've been trying to predict how Shu is going to be playing, and he's surprised me a couple times already, so I'm not going to necessarily say that he's going to pass here, but he may.
Yeah, I sort of like that idea. You saw Liston sort of hover over his leader there. I think that's exactly what he's thinking about, and he's trying to weigh the pros and cons of trying to get max value out of it, and he's trying to figure out, well, when does ShoePlays want to pass? Because your lines of play from Liston's position are going to be very different based on what you think ShoePlays' goal is here in this round.
I mean, it's a pretty hefty amount of points the next play that Liston is able to make. He's got 16 points from the Dow, 16, so 20 extra point, 27-point play, 27-point play from the leader. That is hefty. Shu is not scared of that, though.
He is not scared.
He is showing that same aggressive nature that we saw in the previous game. He really wants to test Liston's resolve here, even though it's very clear that he has a pretty big play. But it's not going to be enough. That still wouldn't be enough. Shu could still pass afterwards.
Yeah, that's the thing. As massive as this leader power would be right now, it's still not enough to overcome. So I think that's why Shu's line was sort of safe there. And it looks like he's going to lock in the value for the Arrakis Queen. He realizes that this round might go on a little bit longer than he's comfortable with, and he just wants to lock in his value here on the Arrakis Queen.
The Arcaspore could whiff the ping. It didn't, but it could have. It could have.
All right, so what does Shu do now? He just saw a massive point gap. Yeah,
I guess he was fine with that. Here. Yeah. So 1 more card is going to go down from Liston. He's still holding that Frightener, which was ultimately never played. I wonder what he ends up doing with that Frightener. I wonder if he goes and holds on to it, maybe anticipating that Shu is going to try to play Cantarella in round 3 just to get that card back so he can play last card. Or not. Wait, would Shu even be in a position to do that after this play?
I don't know that Shu would be in a position to do that. I think what's going to happen with the Frightener is going to be very contextually based on what Liston's draw step looks like. We know there's still a Foglet in the deck. We know that he's got a effectively dead 6-point gold with the last remaining organic card still in his hand. So I think the first card he draws here is going to determine what he does with his mulligan.
It's true, yeah, he could easily draw Tribute. I mean, there's not a lot of cards left. Or, wait, hold on a second.
Yeah, if he hits Tribute, he's basically forced to mulligan the Mandrake, because even Foglet would represent 4 points, where the Mandrake would be 0 since the Tribute pulls it for free. And there goes the Cyclops. I think you pitch the Frightener here and just hope for the best.
Slizzard. We haven't seen him draw a Slizzard yet, so this is going to be at least going to be able to cycle a little bit more here. Get it's Brewis is going to have to. He didn't end up playing an Archospore. He'll be able to Slizzard out a Griffin if he wants to bring a Dow out with Brewis. And, there's still a lot of points here. Oswald's going to go ahead and snack on Roach. Fair enough. I knew that was...
Called that one a while ago.
I knew that was going to happen,
point.
right?
Yep.
I think that's one of Oswald's favorite snacks, something that's been mandraked and ultimately a cereal
And
bowl.
Liston didn't have to think about that one for very long. That was a plan that he was thinking about exactly since it originally got mandraked. I really like the play there. Do it as quick as possible. Prevent that Asir. Now, what is the Asir really doing for him here, right? Is it basically going to be the equivalent of an 11-point silver? Maybe getting him some more options in his deck for Vicavaro Novice?
I think you want to tuck that Griffin back in the deck so you can't be Slizzarded.
That would certainly be a good play here.
I mean, we see it, we kind of understand it a little bit more, but there's the Griffin. It's the there are two in there, and I think that's exactly what Asir would be able to do. Shoe might catch this one. He is. Oh, he's.
Well, the Griffin. Oh yeah,
Here it comes.
because ooh.
This
is spicy.
Pretty good play. Now, the other opportunity is to put the Death Wish back in the deck so Brewis can't res it.
That is the other option
What
here.
was it now? I
would have loved to have known.
The Griffins are still there.
And it looks like the Death Wish units are still there as well.
Too. Maybe I missed it completely what the play was there, but
yeah, I'm a little bit curious what he did decide to choose there. And we see Brewis, one of my personal favorite cards, coming down and just slamming Dow value. He really has shown that he does not value the Archospores at all in this matchup. Always in favor of playing Dow. Whenever he's had that option come up, he has played the Dow, and I think that's because they're much more resilient to Viper Witcher. When the interaction happens, you end up +3 instead of down 1. So I kind of like his choice here. It wasn't something that I thought about all the time, but it's making a lot of sense.
Also, in this situation where you have a kind of a shorter round, and the Archospore is just not going to maybe get like 11 points or something like that.
That's very
in this
fair as
situation, he has the Slizzard Griffin proc the Dow, Cyclops removal proc the Dow. So he has 2 candidates for Death Wish activation, and he's got 2 Death Wish activators, and finally the Mandrake. Is the Mandrake going to be enough though to take on ShoePlays Village Forts? I guess is how I'm trying to see it here, and I mean, hitting Ozra with the Viper Witcher is pretty decent. Liston has a great lead already, and a lot of points still to come. This is I'm letting this one play out. I think it's going to be very close.
I think it's going to be close. I think Liston is slightly...
Destroy the Necrophage on the Black Blood there. Not bad, not bad.
That is
you don't
not
see that
bad
option
at
too
all.
often. Yeah.
You do not, unless you play only Dagon, so I see it a fair amount.
You see it a lot. I still haven't put Osrael on my list yet, which is crazy because Osrael's amazing, but I probably would see that more often as well. So here comes the Griffin Slizzard play, and Cyclops is going to be able to make pretty good use of this as well.
That was a 19-point bronze there. That is pretty good stuff.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
So what do we think? The Vigor Force just has to be used on the Kahir here, right? I imagine you would want to use it first just in case something goes wrong. Maybe an Archospore comes out, pings the Kahir, something like that, so you don't have to eat a 5. And I think that's what ShoePlays is thinking here. This is a big pull.
This is a big pull. Is it Night Sky or Upon's Reflection? It's going to be the Griffin, the Slave Driver into the Griffin. So far, I mean, we saw the Slave Drivers not get a ton of work done here. Just because of this matchup, it's just a little bit favored for Death Wish in that regard. And here comes the second Death Wish activator in the Cyclops.
Yeah, the Cyclops is going to come down for full value here. Another 19-point play. I don't think that ShoePlays is going to be able to make up the gap. We would have to see something special, some special sort of chain coming out of this ointment.
Yeah, I think that's going to be it. Liston Cavanagh is going to push this to 3 games here. Great performance here for Death Wish. Here the audience giving it up. Giving it up for Liston. He's calling for a timeout here, so we're going to just quickly talk about that match now. Yeah. Oh, of course, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it looks like he's just going to get some stuff here, but let's talk about that. What a great matchup. I love this matchup a lot. Joe, you and I are big fans of the Death Wish archetype. I think there's been kind of a debate if Death Wish is actually all that great or not, or if Consume is kind of still king of monsters. And then I think some people were running some weather as well. Some Aridin has been out there. Where do you stand? I think that some people are saying that if you can kind of eliminate Dow and you can eliminate kind of Deathwish kind of engine components with Griffin, you're more likely to take them out. And as Deathwish rises in popularity, people are finding more ways to deal with it. You've taken Deathwish to Grandmaster. What do you think about that kind of argument there?
I do currently think it is the best positioned monster deck, and it's mostly due to its flexibility. Sure, people are starting to tech, and Mandrake's becoming popular. When a Mandrake hits your Dow, it's not great. Your deck's no longer functioning optimally, but it's still functioning. A Griffin on a Larry the Archosaur is still a reasonable amount of points. A Cyclops is still a reasonable amount of points. It's not like your deck totally ceases to function. So I've been a big fan of the deck, and I expect good things from it in the future.
Yeah, I mean, Muzzle being pretty popular tournament pick still, being able to kind of completely disrupt the opponent's strategy, engines on board, and graveyard play later on has been kind of Muzzle. I don't see Muzzle all like super often on the ladder, but I've seen it a lot in the tournaments that I've been able to go to. It's just such a great pick. It's just such a good strategy disruptor. I think disrupting strategy is always kind of the tournament mindset that you're going to have, because if you're able to do that, it just kind of extends your chances to win. And being able to disrupt strategy, you know, your opponent may not get the best draw, and being able to completely shut that down is something that we haven't seen Deathwish suffer too much for. We haven't seen too many Brick Griffins so far. Like, really, I mean, there's really so many units that it can interact with. But we have seen a fair amount of Dagon, and I love that the Erica's Queen was the leader there. Do you think that it really paid off for Liston to run Erica's Queen as the leader over Dagon in this situation?
I don't know. I prefer the guaranteed reliability of Dagon. Dagon is a leader that, while it doesn't have the same ceiling as something like Arrakis Queen in terms of raw power, it's much more reliable. It thins your deck a little bit, basically right off the bat, as Dagon is, you know, a round one play upwards of 90% of the time. And I just really value that consistency there. And Dagon's not a card you can ever really make dead, right? Whereas the Arrakis Queen, you can center your strategy around trying to time the rounds in a way that it's never really able to achieve full value.
Nailed it, Joe. And I wonder, and we're going to ask, listen, both of us, one of us has to remember to ask him, if the pick of Erica's Queen was to influence the opponent's strategy or mulligan or expectations there. So, yeah. I think that could be part of it, but of course Erica's Queen does have that added benefit of having huge tempo plays. We saw that 27-point Erica's Queen proccing the Deathwish. Kind of worked against him in the Henslow matchup in that the game was so close. Those extra consumes arguably are what pushed it over the edge for Shoe. Just getting that extra work done. As we get to see, finally, we get to see Liston's Francesca list. And it's going to be a little bit of hand buff. Some Sword Masters are in the mix here. We have some Bride Neophytes. We do have the Hawker support, and it is, you know, spoiler alert, a Siri Nova list. So
this is so cool. We are in round 5 of a large-scale tournament here, and we are still seeing new viable archetypes at the top tables. This is awesome right now.
Loving it.
I'm a huge Swordmaster fan. I can't wait to see how this goes down. The Alchemy deck with the L's is capable of generating some large units, so it's possible these Swordmasters will be looking at full or close to full value. And we see the open pass here. He's playing towards the fact that Alchemy benefits greatly from a stocked-up graveyard, and on the blue coin, it's a pretty common ladder strategy to open pass against them. What do you think?
It's the first open pass that, I mean, I'm not sure if you cast an open pass game yet. Did you get a chance to do that with those?
I don't believe so.
I think this might be the first open pass we're seeing in this tournament, so this is very interesting. It's something that's extremely common in the Gwent open scene and kind of in the CD Projekt Red sanctioned events, where the blue coin is something that you can depend on and rely on. We are still playing these through friendlies, of course. This is like a big basement land, right? Very, very comfortable. So we're seeing stuff like this, where the open pass is a strategy that hasn't been employed as much. People have been kind of trying to make do with what they can get done here. As Shu's going to go ahead, he's going to play the Neophyte. He has a little bit more fun stuff to work with, I think, with the slave drivers in this one. But Shu's going to go ahead and take this one. I think Liston is going to be having the card advantage here. And what you said before, absolutely seeing still new varied decks, especially from a casting point of view. It's great. I love that we're still casting new games. Very, very varied decks and games so far, as we see Liston is going to finally get into the meat of this hand buff deck. I'm excited to see what the overall strategy is and how it plays out.
ShoePlays is probably also going to be getting to the meat of the hand buff deck. These slave drivers, as they were a little bit suboptimal last game, I think they're going to really come through here. Hitting something like a Dragoon is going to be quite powerful, and it's sort of going to negate a lot of the value that Liston will be gaining off of his own. That being said, Liston's deck is built to use these hand buff effects, so it's still going to be slightly better for him. I'm I'm excited to see what ShoePlays pulls here.
Right on, right on. And also listed having the Yavin, it means he can push for even more card advantage if he thinks he's able to, get the opportunity to. He is holding a Scorch, he is holding a Shiro as well, so there are going to be some opportunities for him to maybe swing things right back into his control, as he's already going to be up 2 cards, maybe sacrificing a card, especially as Cantarella's coming down. He's going to have a great opportunity to do so.
And that Cantarella is at 14 strength. It was one of the 2 cards that got buffed at the end of last round by the Neophyte. This is a key point of the game. He's probably going to have to use an archer on his own unit at some point, because as we see in Liston's hand, he's holding a Scorch and he's holding on to Shiru. So the buff falling on the Cantarella was actually pretty fortunate for Shue there, although that's not the type of unit that you usually want to get buffed.
I think that hopefully in the future we see Neophytes not buff disloyal units. I think
agree.
that there are a lot of cards that don't buff disloyal units, like Full Test is probably the premier example, since that was one of the early changes to Full Test, but we still, and Dragoons as well, also don't buff disloyal units. So eventually, hopefully we get around to making the Neophytes just a little bit more reliable to not
catch them up to speed with everything else.
Yeah, don't leave the Neophytes behind, all right, guys? I say it on my stream all the time because I have liked running Neophytes here and there and Scoia'tael when I have played Scoia'tael.
So I think there's a big pull here. If he has his choice, do you think he wants the burst potential of something like the Hawker Support, or do you think he wants to play long and hope for Dragoon? What is he hoping to hit here?
Oh, he's going to go for the Elven Scout, which has a lot of opportunities to pull all sorts of craziness because he has 0 Scoia'tael cards in his deck. I think the Dragoon is, I think getting a Dragoon or getting a Neophyte is probably, it's all just beefing up the strong plays that Shue already has. Viper Witcher's at 5, doing already being 15-point bronzes, getting like a Hawker Support up there, so they're just that much more deadly is always probably a favorable option. There's probably not a lot that he's not going to want to see. I mean, the Neophytes buffing already is kind of like 10 plus an extra 2 kind of carryover strength. The Elven Scout has the opportunity of being all those things and more, 2 points more exactly. There's a lot in there for. One more point. That's a buff. They were nerfed, of course. But, there's a lot of opportunity.
Because the Slave Driver also. So.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, exactly, because of the Slave Driver.
I think that he's really looking to buff up that Kahir. It seems to me that he's probably going to want to play this round at least reasonably long. And Kahir is the type of card that is a ton of points in one card. If he can get his finisher buffed by some of these hand buff effects from Liston's deck, I think that's going to be pretty important here. He's certainly not going to be leaving the round until after the John Calvate comes down. Yeah,
the John Calvate play is ultimately kind of what the late game for Alchemy hinges upon, outside of bringing back the Viper Witchers. Sometimes you just kind of have that short round play. Shue's hand looks great, obviously. He does have 3 very important goals in his hand, and that means that his Calvate is a little bit more reliable. He's not looking for anything specific. Stefan Skellen can assure that he's going to get something fantastic on top of the deck as well. How do you feel about Stefan Skellen? I don't think Stefan Skellen originally started off as a really strong Alchemy goal, but it kind of got in there recently. The addition of Stefan Skellen, what is Shue probably looking for at this point?
I think he's going to stack his Calvate, possibly with either Vesemir or Mandrake, depending on if he wants the tempo in this round or to save the Vesemir. Stefan Skellen's a card that I was originally pretty low on, but it's really sort of proven me wrong in this deck. It does feel very powerful here because you have so much synergy with the top of your deck. The 5-point buff is almost a form of carryover when you're guaranteed to draw it. It's certainly interesting in this list, and it's definitely better than I had originally given it credit for.
Action to ShoePlays here. Shue is probably just doing his best to create a lead that Liston would have to spend a hefty amount to get over. At least he has a board that's favorable to the Viper Witchers, getting full value here, as that was Stefan Skellen right there. We didn't get a chance to see what he picked, but we can assume Vesemir, I think. We could probably make a safe assumption that it's Vesemir. Calvate's going to show us most likely when it gets played, potentially next turn.
Yeah, it's really nice here. Shue already has the Kahir in his hand, so he doesn't have to worry about stacking his deck with it to make sure that he finds the finisher. This sort of frees up the Stefan Skellen, basically to tutor up whatever he wants, and I do think that he's going to likely be playing it this round off of the Calvate. Shue's going to be looking to assemble a large chunk of points here, build a very solid lead that he hopes Liston is going to take multiple cards to overcome, as that's his best route towards equalizing card advantage for the last round.
Isengrim coming down with the Teruvial.
That's a spicy one. We haven't seen a lot of Teruvial today, have we? A lot more Melenas and things.
Yeah, Melenas and Sappers and all sorts of, I mean, we did get to see Red Rain play a Scoia'tael deck at one point. There has been a lot of Scoia'tael. I mean, was it you who said that you predicted a lot of Scoia'tael bans? Somebody definitely was talking about predicting a lot of Scoia'tael bans in this one.
No Control was definitely heavy on it. I thought it would be banned more early in the day, and I expected more Alchemy bans as the day went on, because I do think Great Swords is one of the most powerful decks, and I think getting rid of Alchemy sort of helps to really let it shine.
And how do you feel about, this is my second question. My second question here is, how do you feel about Alchemy being the premier Nilfgaard deck being brought to this tournament and Spies taking a back seat?
It's interesting. I'm definitely happy to see something new, because the Spy deck has been so good for so long. It's really refreshing to see other archetypes being fully fleshed out. Alchemy has this cool deck building requirement to a lot of the deck. That being said, I'm not a huge fan of all the slave drivers running around, but everything else about this deck is really, really sweet.
And there is Vesemir on top of the deck for Calvet. So you can see the buff on it. It was absolutely buffed by Skellen. So that was on top of the deck there. So Shue's putting himself in a pretty good position here. It's possible that, I mean, you do have to account for Trivial, of course, until Shue is 100% sure that it is Trivial. I think that at this point you do know that. I think 2 turns have passed. And the Scorch is still blocked for Liston. He can't play Scorch, he can't play Shiro unless he wants to Epidemic something, I suppose. But why would you make such a low play? Just, of course, looking at all the options here.
Yeah, this is definitely a viable strategy. I'm not sure if this is what she was going for, but if you can sort of sniff out the fact that your opponent's on one of these multiple Scorch type of decks, sometimes once the Scorch is blocked, you can really push them to the limits in a round 2, effectively forcing some of their otherwise very, very powerful effects like Scorch and Shiru to either be completely dead or not to get nearly their full value, which can really mess with your opponent's strategy here. You don't think that Shue ever has to worry about something like an Igni, right? You see Scoia'tael, you think Scorch, you think Shiru. I don't think the 2 11s in the center row is a problem. It's probably not something on his radar, right? It's just not a Scoia'tael card.
I mean, I think that Shiru kind of takes that role for Scoia'tael in the most part. Definitely you need to consider Scorch. Scorch just happens to find its way into so many Scoia'tael lists. So I think that maybe you could put Liston on possibly having a Scorch, but Shiro it's a pretty popular card at this moment, and he's probably in the best state that he's ever been right now, having those options.
I love the redesign of that card.
Yeah,
it's great.
just being that extra Scorch and being able to do so much work for you. So.
Dragoon's coming down a little later than he would have liked, as, you know, the longer the round, obviously, the more value it's likely to get over time. And are we going to see a multiple turn, like double Archer type deal to try and take it down? Or is he going to go and try and line something up? Let's see how he approaches this.
I mean, he can really telegraph. There it is. That's exactly what he's showing off here. So this is very, very clear what's going to be happening now. Shue knows that he's holding at least one Scorch effect.
Yeah, alarm bells definitely just went off in ShoePlays' head. He knows what's up. This is a very telegraphed play.
I also think that this puts a risk on Mahakamail at this point, because, I mean, Mahakamail was already a risk of hitting Yavin, because then that definitely put it into Scorch territory. But now that Shue knows what's happening, it makes it much harder for him to play something like Mahakamail if, you know, Yavin gets caught drinking.
Particularly with that 10 sitting in the back. That could make for some really awkward situations if the Neophyte were to get buffed and the Yavin was not to.
Yeah, good eye. Yeah, so that could end up having double 14s easily roasted by Shiro, or even just a Scorch at that point. You probably just take the value of the Scorch, hold on to Shiro.
Yeah, I would imagine so. Shiru having the body, just being, you know, intrinsically more powerful, a little bit of flexibility, even if you don't use the Epidemic that often. That's the card you want to save for round 3.
Oh, man, he took the risk, too. Now, Skellen is the Scorch target at this point, but boy, man, if that beer hit the Neophyte, what a light show that would be.
Very close. Very, very close. He's pretty much in a position where I think he has to take that risk. He wants to thin out his deck. He wants to get those Ls out of his deck. He wants to get his Novices into the graveyard. It's not incredibly likely that he gets over the top punished. That being said, he's not in the greatest position here. And as we're looking forward to see some of the other plays that's available to him, where are you on the Runestone? There are some cards you get off this Nilfgaardian Runestone, like Empress, that greatly benefit from being played early in the round, and then there's some cards that benefit much more from being played late in the round.
You know what? I think, Joe, I'm going to let Shue decide on what he likes to see.
Okay.
Oh, a little smile, a little smile. Now, sometimes it's really hard to read the smiles on the players' faces, because sometimes you're looking at a choice so bad.
I'm
you're
thinking
just
bad.
Like, oh,
I'm thinking bad here. The head shake with the smile. It doesn't look good for him.
Just my luck. I mean, it's interesting. Empress is a very interesting one. Here we go. We're going to see what Shue plays here. ShoePlays. Oh, he gets the double. Oh, he gets the trivial lockdown.
Okay, so that's representing a fair amount of points there, right?
Yeah, Liston not too happy about this one. So now the score you see is the score you understand. Trivial not representing any hidden points here. And now Liston is going to have to fight. And he does have a lot of points in Shiro here, hitting that 16-point Stefan Skellen.
I think starting to burn through these Scorch effects is totally a reasonable approach, and then you have the thinning of Reconnaissance. I expect him to go one way or the other. Sometimes you don't want to get caught in round 3 with too many different Scorch effects, particularly against the Alchemy deck that's capable of generating multiple bodies with one card. Scorch effects in general aren't the greatest against these type of things, because even though you're scorching the largest thing, you're still leaving behind part of the value of the card, often leaving you a little bit behind in the exchange.
I like this play with Shiro, opting to play Shiro instead of the Scorch, because it looks like Liston's just trying to get as much foothold as he can here. So he doesn't want to lose any ground to Shue at this point, because he's trying to keep that card that he opened past to keep in the first place. So his entire strategy is trying to keep his tempo high enough that Shue isn't able to push beyond it. So instead of just opting to Scorch to keep this close, he wants to make this much more unappealing and less attractive for Shue to stay in this round.
100%. I think that's exactly what he's doing here. It's just putting the points on the board. That is a statement that he is here. He is going to win this round. He is willing to expend very valuable resources. The other hidden benefit is sometimes when you see the Shiro come down, you're like, okay, I sort of expected one Scorch. Now, the second Scorch is much less likely. Is he even playing Vanilla Scorch? Just the Shiro? And if he does, did he really have both of them in his hand? So you might get a little bit of surprise value here as well.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Northern Realms where you reinforce out a soldier that you actually have in your hand already, just to entice your opponent to remove it. I love that play. Yeah, it's just kind of like a little bit of, you go into your deck first before you come from hand.
Definitely.
And it definitely shows, it doesn't give your opponent that extra information. It doesn't give them a chance to maybe put you on something a little less common. I mean, seeing Scorch in an Ethno-type Scoia'tael deck is much more common than perhaps in a Francesca deck where you're running tall units and you're buffing units as well. Sometimes you can get caught with that Scorch. So having the opportunity to take that Scorch, and now it looks like Shue's in a situation where a Mahaka male that comes out of the Novice could once again catch that Neophyte, and that could be a huge 28-point Scorch.
Yeah, this is very interesting here. After we saw that super aggressive line, the next play here being the Francesca, one of the big downsides of playing with this leader, the power and the flexibility that it gives you, it is a very low point tempo play on the board. So I'm a little surprised to see this after the aggressive Shiro line, or maybe the Shiro line was trying to make room for this low tempo play. Hopefully he could sort of slot it in like that. Yeah,
he wanted to afford to play Francesca and not get this too out of control for him. So Shue has the option. He obviously can't play Ka here. He does have 2 Viper Witchers and the Vikovar Novice, likely pulling a Mahaka male.
He's got his pass back now, though.
He does have his pass back, absolutely. So he gets to go into even, and that puts Liston in a situation where he's got Sirinova and Scorch, and maybe not the opportunity to play it. And I think it's very interesting that Liston actually went with this list that is running a Scorch and Sirinova. Lots of tall unit potentially. Now, Shue is continuing to play here, which may give Liston an opportunity to make the Scorch work for him. Or is he?
Yeah, I think. Or is he? I think it's pretty aggressive to keep playing here, and if ShoePlays does choose to keep playing here, I think Liston really wants to get this Scorch out of his hand. If I'm in his seat, that's priority number 1 to me, just because of the interaction with Sirinova and the potential of being on even cards, not having last play. That can really lead to some awkward sequencing in the final round.
I think another consideration for Liston is that the Scorch helps him take the round. So as long as he stays within the boundaries of the 14 points, he can hold it and then play it to take the round.
She's getting big. That is a thick Sirinova we got right there.
Sirinova is going to make a crater when it lands on the board, definitely. 29 points and growing.
Yeah, what does Shue do here? Does he want to consider taking the pass at this point, or does he continue to push and maybe try and get this down to a 1-card versus 1-card situation where the Kahir very well might be able to outvalue the Sirinova? I think the decision is a little harder by the fact that the Roach is on the table, has not been seared back into his deck, so that's going to be 4 points off of the typical combo.
I mean, Shue has already been showing that he has no problem being hyper-aggressive in round 2s when he is down on cards, when he's down on down on cards either by 2 or 3. I think he just doesn't want really to push Liston, to give Liston the opportunity to really get a foothold here, because it's possible that Shue's like, all right, you want to get that card, you want to open pass on me? I'm going to make this as difficult as possible for you.
Yeah, he's being quite stubborn, and it's working out for him.
It's working out for him right now, but I wonder if, ultimately Liston can take it, but if it involves him using the Sirinova, ooh, this Trapper is not too shabby.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's not too bad here.
This little 16-point bronze, also potentially threatening to mess with another Mahakam Al coming down. If Shu wanted to continue with this line, he probably does not want to play the Kahir, as that is his finisher here. And the Fireball Trap has the ability to potentially, 1 out of 6 times, it will suck up that Mahakam Al for an additional 4 points of value here.
How disgusting would it be if the Mahakam El comes down, buffs the trap, buffs the neophyte? Pretty much. I mean, at this point, I mean, it's this is a fine pass, I think.
He's
for
seen
sure.
enough now.
He's
Yeah,
seen
I
enough.
like
He's
this
still
pass.
ahead. And here, but the thing is, Listen is within Scorch range to take it, and I think the Scorch is the answer here.
Yeah, that seems like the play to me. Because it's just the most reactive card he has in his hand, and having to lead off, he's already got the Archer in his hand, which isn't great onto an empty board state. I'm really curious to see which one he values more.
I think he's got to go for this, because otherwise he has to risk that ShoePlays doesn't play something bigger than the Archer that he would have to play, even though Shu's acting first. I mean, likely you can assume that Calvet's going to be on the board at 11.
Yeah, he's got to be coming back. I don't know.
I mean, you know Calvet's coming back, right? You know it is. So you know you're going to probably be able to hit the Scorch on it before Siri Nova, but
what if Shu just decides
it's
to hold
less
on
risky
to
here
it?
to play the Scorch. I
Yeah,
think this is
I like
probably
the
the
Scorch line
safest
here.
play here, yeah.
And even if you're just going to be hitting the 11, assuming nothing crazy happens and multiple 11s line up, the Archer's representing more than 11 points by itself right now.
It's true. The Archer can help you line stuff up, but I mean, I think just playing it safe here is probably unlisted.
I like this
I
play.
wish I could watch this play out in both scenarios. I
Wouldn't
wish
that
I
be awesome?
Could have seen like how it would have gone here. We see the Dragoon draw.
We'll be getting the wormhole feature for the next tournament where we get
Yeah,
to
right.
travel through time and space.
Yeah, we get to see all the decisions. Ooh, that might be.
That's not
That
great
mulligan
here.
might have been the thing that's going to sink him here.
Yeah, that's really unfortunate as we have this awesome game guy, and look at Shu. He
Yeah.
knows it. He's
knows
very
that.
happy about this. I'm sure the chat is is enjoying seeing the downsides of War Dancer.
Oh yeah, it's like I think that this is a cathartic moment for a lot of the War Dancer haters out there. You're like, oh, you want your War Dancer here? You got it. There it is. Enjoy.
So how do we try and bounce back? He doesn't really have a ton of interactivity. Both of his cards basically just amount to points here. If he can clear one of the rows to maybe make the Mahakam L that could potentially come from ShoePlays a little bit worse, that's sort of a use for the Archer. But other than that, it's just looking like raw points here. It looks like 12, and how big is the Nova?
Nova's gonna be 29 points here, and because I do believe that he
Is that
gets
28?
It's 22 and oh, I'm sorry, I'm not counting.
Yeah, I think it's
I'm not
28. I think
counting
it's
the initial
28.
one strength that she starts at.
Yeah,
So
I think it's 28.
It is going to be 28 points. Yeah, plus the raw points of the Archer coming in at 13 points. Is Shu actually able to make this up? The Black Blood, what is it able to do?
I don't know.
How
That-
big
that's
would
a card
Mornchart
with a lot
be?
of swing.
Mornchart, 23 points in the 23 cards in the graveyard. How many of those are units? Not many, right?
I don't think there's a ton there. Azrael is always a very solid pull that you can hit from that card, but then again, you can get stuck with an Ekimara as well. So we're going to have to see the variance in some of these alchemy cards. It could really pay off here, or it could bite him and sort of equal out the War Dancer draw there.
Oh, Shu, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? Here it comes.
And it feels like an Azrael to me.
It is Azrael, yeah.
Felt like
Oh,
it.
it's a ghoul, a ghoul. Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, so the point total that Shu is going to have to beat, it's
He
not
needs 14
that
for the
much.
win here. This is looking pretty good.
Shu's going to take this one. It's going to edge it out. The War Dancer told the tale here. He got the ale off Calvet. Man, oh man, the War Dancer haters can have a little parade for this one. Shu is going to take this
ShoePlays
best
taking
of
the
3
win.
series, knocking out Liston. Well, not knocking him out necessarily, but putting Liston at a 2-loss. Shu goes up 4-1. He is in a great spot to get into the top 8 at this